my heart stopped and I died. And it's still a tingle in my spine to have to relive that testimony, to know that I got a second chance at life.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Hey Where'd You Go podcast. I'm your host, Collin Kushner, and we have another amazing guest. We have former NFL and CFL offensive lineman Kris Doura, and guess what he's doing now? He's a financial planner in the Miami area. Kris, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing all right, Collin. I really appreciate you inviting me on to the podcast. I think it's just a great way to just share a little bit of who I am with the world. But I feel wonderful. I'm blessed. I wake up every morning and I'm inspired. So, I'm always looking forward to, really, staying competitive in any industry or any competitive sport that I still participate in.
I want to start from your childhood years. Your parents are from Haiti. How would they describe their childhood in Haiti, and what do they do for work?
My parents are 100% Haitian. They literally, their entire family, our heritage is Haitian. My parents, my father, he owns a business. He owns actually a mortuary in his province, and then my mother is in management. And together, they have become very successful. But they always realized that what was more important was the kids and the education side of making sure that we were going to have a future. We weren't born in Haiti. We were actually born in Queens, Flushing, New York. Myself and my other siblings. And I'll tell you what, at a young age, I realized that every state and every place is different. Everything has its own gems, and obviously, being from a different, culture and the way I was raised, it really, showed me of how to really appreciate everywhere because everything has its gems and everything has its ups and flows. But really, from Haiti, it's a third world country. And obviously, when you think about what you see in the third world country, it's not the same as the United States. But you learn to appreciate stuff. You learn that some countries don't have running water. Some countries are not fully powered up with electricity, and you have to create those things. So seeing that type of lifestyle really made me appreciate what I had in the United States, and really take life more delicately and appreciate what I have today.
Did you learn anything about football down in Haiti, or was that something when you came back to the United States, then enter in this chapter of football? Because I want people to know, Kris, you're 6'7", a lot taller than me, dude.
Well, in Haiti, it's a different culture. They don't play American football there. It's really, the global sport soccer. They kick the ball, they run around, and that's really what you play. But as a kid, I was chubby and fat, so I was always playing the goalie when I played, and it was a good experience because it kept me competitive. But really, basketball is really also a global sport, and soccer is kind of what that country follows. They follow Pele, Brazil. That's been that country's overall team for many moons. They actually do have a Haitian national team, and they compete really well too. But really growing up, that was kind of the sport that you watched and you followed and you rooted for.
And from Haiti, you moved back to Miami, and you told me during our pre-call that you didn't really get your start into football until your junior year of high school.
Yeah, that was kind of another story in itself when I realized, I started developing. I started, really taking on weight training seriously. I'll tell you what, in my freshman year, I did play basketball and it was great, but it just wasn't something that I was super coordinated at. And I'm honest to say that, like, it was my height, that really kind of opened those doors for me. And, when you think about where I was going, it wasn't something that I grew up with. So when I realized that, there were so many more options out there, I decided to take a break and, really focus on my academics and, get really in the weight room. I noticed that you started getting noticed by the girls, your shoulders started, broadening up. And that was kind of what was important was people started actually noticing you. And when I realized that weight training actually started, developing my body in a different way, that's when I got noticed by, Miami South Ridge head football coach Stu Rogers, and he came up to me during a lunch hour and said, "Hey, son, you look kind of stout there. Your shoulders look a little broad. Have you ever considered coming out?" I really felt connected. I felt like it was inspirational to have a head coach, come up to me and ask me to join their team. And that's really what inspired me. And I said, you know what, for what it was, I have nothing to lose outside of, learn about this sport and develop some great friendships and join something that was organized. And plus, all the hot girls were after the football players. So I was like, I gotta be able to be in that crowd too.
Thank you for admitting that, Kris, because I feel like during these conversations, it's the one thing that's on every athlete's mind, and it's also on my mind too as the host. But no one says it, and I get it. It makes sense. If I were in the same position, I would feel the same way.
Well, you start building, a sense of a following because like now you're getting noticed. You have a jersey that you wear every Friday for the big game. And, teachers, people are starting to really recognize you. So you just get that, I guess you would say that semi-celebrity status. And then when you start performing, I mean, it's just through the roof. You just have people that want to be in your fan club. And that was a good feeling to have in high school. When you did your work, you performed well on and off the field, but then you got that recognition. And then there was opportunities to go to college.
Well, did you think though, when your coach Stu Rogers came and chatted with you, did you think that was going to turn into anything, or was it kind of one of those situations where you're thinking, okay, this sounds like it could be cool. I'll have some new friends, and of course, all the girls will be after me as well.
I had no idea that football was going to be a stepping stone to my future. And, really playing that game, my junior year, I came out and I did spring football. And believe it or not, I played defense. Being a guy that, really didn't play organized sport, I went out and I just did my best. But I realized that I wasn't as wide as the defensive lineman. I was more actually taller. And I had a wingspan for days. So they actually said, you know what, Kris, I think your natural position, try out lineman. And I said, okay, great, no problem. Whatever you need me to do, I'll add value to that part. And believe it or not, I actually had a really good kick slide. And I had one of the strongest punches on the team. And I realized that, wow, this is actually a natural fit for me. So that's when I decided, defensive line kind of had my interest and helped me start. But my natural position was really an offensive lineman.
The thing I love about this story in particular is that it almost came out of nowhere. Sometimes you have the classic, my dad played football, he put a football in my hands, and I knew from the age of 2 that I wanted to be the starting quarterback and play football. For you, though, I love the, hey, Kris, like, your shoulders are broad, you're a big dude, do you, like, want to play for my team? I love the casualness behind the pitch.
What I heard from my head coach was that there was opportunities in the biz, and meaning college opportunities. My parents, really embedded those values in me from an early start and said, at the end of the day, you can always play a sport and it gets taken away from you, but nobody can ever take you what's up here, your mind. And that's really what I saw in regards to the value of why I decided to actually go into sport, because I knew that, listen, we didn't, prepare for a medical school, or we didn't, think about becoming lawyers and engineers, and we didn't go that route. My parents, did a great job with what they offered us as their kids, but when you think about college, university, it became very expensive. So using my height, using my talent, I had great feet work. And I learned to develop that over time. And obviously, when you think about the football route, it really exposed me to opportunity. And that's really when I said, if there is anything out of the deal, if I do join football, I can build a bond. I could, have an organization that helps support, what I like to do. and I could be around a group of guys and just be myself. And having that humbleness and being able to be around people that were like me. Listen, we're all gladiators at the end of the day, but if we're able to, play the sport in an arena and have some fun, smash mouth style, going after each other and not, getting in trouble, it's actually, permitted. Why not? So that was kind of what led me to continue playing the game. But I knew that if I gave it my all at 100%, maybe I can get an opportunity to go to college, and that's exactly what happened.
And that's the thing I love, Kris, is you essentially leveraged football, something that you really didn't know what was going to come from it, but you leveraged it in so many ways that are applicable later on in life. Friendships, the art of working hard, having that be a part of your core value. And of course, taking advantage of the educational side of things as well, because no one can take away the knowledge and that you gain and that you have in your mind. And that's exactly what you did. I'm curious, though, about the recruiting process. What was that experience like for you?
Well, you know what? It was definitely brand new. When you're getting ready to go into college, it's the student athlete first. And I think obviously because I was such a late bloomer, I didn't have the ability to have my test scores on time for a signing day. And I had great offers, Wisconsin, Auburn, Nebraska, UM. I had some really great universities who wanted to offer me a full ride, but because of not knowing and not being prepared, I didn't I missed my shot at a D1 offer. And I think if I would have went that route, it would have been really hectic because I would have had too many people around me, too many beautiful women, and I've been party central all day. So I think it was a blessing in disguise that God wanted me to go to another university that was a little more calmer and really allowed me to really step into my, I guess, uncomfort zone, but at the same time put me in a situation that was totally different from the tropical weather. And that's when University of Charleston in West Virginia, they decided to offer me a scholarship. And I was amazed, to tell you the truth. Being a late bloomer, playing, literally a half of a season in high school, and just now getting noticed, and then a university decided they want to offer me a full ride to go play. I mean, it was literally God's call for me to pursue that university, and I felt it was a good connection on my visit. And when I did take a visit, I mean, we're talking negative 28 degrees, total difference.
This kind of goes back, Kris, to the moving around growing up, being born in New York, then moving to Miami, then going to Haiti. It's complete culture shock going to Charleston.
Well, you know what? It was. I mean, they're 20 years behind still. I feel like they still wear mullets, for crying sake. But, when you think about it, you're able to kind of really evolve and realize that every place is special in its own way. And if you can pick up something about any place where you go, the culture, the people, you learn a lot about yourself. And, I was super focused. When I went to Charleston, it was totally a culture shock from what I'm used to. But being that I did travel, I had been exposed to different places in my world. It was kind of relaxing to know that I was in a place that was different, but at the same time, I was a lot more focused at kind of what was going on around me and my surroundings. It really made me develop my senses and really take care of myself in a way that I had to learn how to develop into maturity. And obviously when you go through a different phase in your life when you're 18 years old, you're on your own and you're facing adversity, you have so much stuff that you can actually learn about within yourself. It makes you stronger as a man.
I think the ability to adapt to those different circumstances and instead of hitting the panic button, because I think it's human nature, you go somewhere different. And here's a perfect example, Kris. I went from Los Angeles to Lafayette, Louisiana, where I was a sports anchor reporter for 2 years. I was so scared and it was so different. I didn't know what to do. It was like my whole world was turned upside down. But I realized this is a phenomenal opportunity to really learn and to grow as a person. And once you start taking advantage of where you are and being in the moment with those people and the culture and the surroundings, it's a beautiful thing. And you really learn a lot about yourself and others. And that's why I love how you approached going to the University of Charleston.
Yeah, UC, it's a wonderful university. It was different, We had 1,200 students. High school had 4,000 kids at Miami Southridge, so you can really imagine it was super culture shock for me. But in what I was able to obtain in regards to my education, what I was able to make new connections. I had lunch with the governor, Joe Manchin. And it was amazing to be able to really get the experience and be able to sit down with these leaders politically, but at the same time, get a bachelor's of science degree in business and then pursue a master's. And really, when I spent my time, in the master's program, it was a different experience because we were the first class at the university in the master's program. And it was such a great way to know that there was so much more in education for me ahead, that was the reason why I decided to push myself. And I go back to my parents. My parents always said, you know what, if you get that education, you never know where you can go in life. And being that my parents were business people, I felt that it was, something that I wanted to pursue myself and learn about business. And that was what really intrigued me. And, growing up in Florida, having the experience in Haiti, and then getting an opportunity to go play sports. But then at the end of the day, I knew the fallback plan was I love finance. And I wanted to learn how to run a company and be my own CEO. So I said, well, the best route for me is to study business. And that was the reason where I decided to pursue business administration to learn how to run a company and to learn those skills that I was able to apply after sport. I always had a fallback plan. I knew exactly, what I wanted out of life, and I made that decision early. I never shifted gears. I knew to stay in my lane, but to continue progressing, and that's really what led me to become, the professional I am today.
How does it work, though, Kris, for somebody who's in a similar situation, but maybe their parents didn't stress the academic side or never stressed the importance of having a plan outside of their particular sport? How does that work? Because for you, it makes sense. You have that hammered into your head. But for somebody on the opposite side of that, it seems a little more difficult to navigate those waters.
Yeah, it's a shortfall. I think, really mentorship and leadership starts in your home, and it starts with your parents wanting better for you as a child. And I think, obviously, when you think about, what we were offered and the cards we had on the table, education was key. And my mother and father knew that, the only way out in this world and to become successful is through what you knew up here. And that was the reason where, I took that, and ran with it. I do think today parents should get more involved with their children, and not just on the athletic side, but more involved in the classroom. Because obviously, when you think about when you sit at the dinner table, well, what are we talking about? Not the Kardashians or not some reality TV show. You want to talk about budgets. You want to talk about finances. You want to talk about the elephant on the table that people are in fear to talk about. And when you think about it, not everybody has the same parental unit where that's the key thing that you want to discuss. Or you want to hammer that, you got to go to school. Education is key. That's the only thing that no one can take away from you is your knowledge. Well, not everybody talks about that. And, to be frank, I think it's really, important today with what we're going through with, coronavirus and, kind of, being able to keep up with times. Things are evolving. Millennials today are so on their phones that they're not spending enough time, doing their own due diligence to figure out, well, what do they really want?
It makes it difficult because when it comes to, let's just say, recruiting, for instance, it's all about Twitter and Instagram and how do I announce that I'm going to play at this Power 5 program and having a highly produced video and look at these jerseys. And that's all great. But at the end of the day, if you don't have that solid foundation, and again, it comes to parents or maybe a guardian or maybe good family friend saying it's not just about that, then you don't know and you're kind of left out in the open thinking, okay, now what?
Well, yeah, I mean, you made a great point, Colin. And I think obviously in today's generation, what's really imperative is that, you don't only have to rely on your parents. You have mentors. If you are in a sports atmosphere, you can talk to your coaches, talk to the older players, because there are steps in the process. people don't just automatically wake up and say, I'm going to the league, or, wake up and know exactly that I want to be, a professional in academia in some capacity, or become entrepreneurs. They don't know that, until they realize that, something woke me up, either a life experience, or, you realize that, you start getting pulled, and law of attraction, who you hang around determines your future. Show me your friends and I'll tell you your future. And that's a real quote, where you think about, well, the people you surround yourself with, are they talking about winning concepts, winning strategy? It doesn't always have to be a monetary concept. Are you giving back philanthropically? Are you involved in your community? Are you able to say, well, what did I do for someone else? And I think that's where you find the joy in life, to really determine, well, how do you want to approach it?
I think there's a happy medium, especially because we were all 16, 17, 18 at one point, and I'd be lying to you if I told you that I was thinking so far ahead about the future and what do I do if this doesn't work out. But with that being said, it has to be maybe 50%. I want to go to this school. They have sweet jerseys and the crowd's going to be crazy and the cheerleaders are going to be after me. That's great. But I also think on the flip side, there needs to also be conversations about, what are you going to study at the University of Oregon? What do you want to do with that degree in case football doesn't work out?
Yeah, that's totally a way to, encourage, our young leaders to think about those things. And that also is emphasis in high school, where counselors and, more of the people that you look up to for help, should start having those conversations, not just your senior year. I think, our system, could be strengthened even at the earlier stages, where even preschool and grade school, and then, getting into junior high, these are things that are important to be talked about at those levels, because it helps prepare you to start thinking about, how do I adjust, and start thinking about, well, yeah, education is important, but I still want to be, a kid. I still want to be a teen. I still want to go to that party. I still want to be able to drive around, when I turn 16, when I get my, permit, and I want to go to prom. But at the same time, for us to really build leaders and to change this world, it starts when you're very young. And that's really where there could be a lot more of assistance and, more exposure to really, setting up kids for success, but through a platform, through a leadership platform and a mentorship platform, to really say, well, these are the things that kids should be exposed to. Healthy choice of food. What kind of options do you start considering as you continue maturing to go to the next grade? It doesn't have to only be, well, once I get to high school, should I start thinking about, classes that I want to pick and elect? It should be at the earlier stages, where it's going to help prepare you for the what ifs.
I'm laughing in my head right now because growing up, my parents were all about eating healthy and organic foods and having juices in the morning, like fresh pressed. And Kris, this is before any of this, has become so mainstream. This is when people still thought it was weird. And I always thought to myself, man, I just want to go over to my buddy Dean's place and get the junk food, right? And get the fruit roll-ups and the cookies, which was the truth. And as I got older, I slowly started realizing I like eating healthy. I like the way I feel. I like it's a great way to live. And those little like seeds that my parents planted at a young age started to develop. And now as an almost 30-year-old, I totally get it. So you're right. It can't just be something that happens when you get to high school. It's little things that go along the way. But again, you're relying on the fact that you have parents or good people around you to help set that foundation for you. You spent 5 years at Charleston. Again, you walked away, bachelor's of science. You walked away with your master's degree. You were all ready to go to the private sector. Then the NFL came calling. You had an opportunity to try out for the Miami Dolphins. They were coached by Tony Sperano at the time. When that opportunity came around, what was the emotion when you got that opportunity, knowing full well you were ready for the suit and tie life?
I didn't have an agent. I didn't have ESPN highlights, and I didn't have a huge entourage that they get at the D1 level. And when my head coach relayed the information to me that the NFL was interested, that was another blessing in disguise. And I knew that I had the master's degree and I had a fallback plan, but you only get one shot at going pro. And for whatever it was worth, I said I had to find out. I had to open that door and learn about, really what's on the other side. When I left Charleston in 2008, I came back to Florida and I trained for many months and I got myself prepared. And I got myself prepared for about a good year. And that's when I decided to, walk on to the Miami Dolphins. And, Tony Sperano, Chad Henne was the quarterback. We had a great cast, the big tuna, in the locker room. It was amazing. And the emotions of me just considering myself to be in that position, I mean, breathtaking. I mean, it's literally when you go on your first date with a girl and you just are so nervous, you don't know what to expect. But at the same time, it's like you want to make sure that you do your best. You want to make sure that you are on point. And that experience when I was with the Dolphins was phenomenal because I got to really see how an organization is ran at a very high level. Being in the locker room, going to meetings, waking up, eating the right way, and just receiving all that information and competing. We had, Cal Missy, Jared Audrick, those guys came out that year when I walked on. And it was just an amazing experience to be in the same atmosphere of those guys who played all their lives and then had the first round, opportunity where they were able to get drafted. And when you're on that level competing with those guys, you feel amazing because you realize that, what? The only difference is, well, maybe those guys just went to a bigger school and had a lot more exposure, but there's nothing that I was not able to bring to the table. And I was a disruptor. And, from what I did learn as an athlete, I was a late bloomer, but I had hustle. I had grit. I was the guy who was the first guy in the meeting room, the last guy out, and I was making sure that I finished every rep. If I had at least hustle, that's really how I was able to, really show my talent. Now, again, the experience that you get at that pro level, it really teaches you so much more about yourself. And you learn about the indifferences. You learn about what you know, what you don't know. And that experience for me really helped me to grow and, really become a true professional in sports. And I really took it serious. It was something that, I loved. I became more passionate as the years went by. And I feel that, that's the game of life for me personally. Now, every sport teaches you so much about life. When you can apply those similar, traits and that discipline in what you do every day. I still wake up in the morning and I'm still waking up at 5 a.m. and I'm ready to work out and I'm ready to study. And then I'm getting ready for work. So it's like the discipline that I learned in sports, I still take that with me for the rest of my life.
And from there, Kris, you went up to Canada. You were with the Montreal Alouettes in the CFL.
Yeah.
And then you came back down to the States. You went to training camp with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and your entire life and perspective would be forever changed.
It was definitely a journey, being a late bloomer and getting all those opportunities. I guess I was good somewhere. And I just kept on pushing myself. I would never stop. And I'm not a quitter. And I think I learned that, at an early age that it doesn't matter what you pursue in life, you just got to keep pushing yourself. Don't ever listen to that person that doubted you. Don't ever, take for granted an opportunity. And those were the principles that were instilled in me at an early age. Yeah, I had an opportunity to play under Mark Trestman, actually one of my favorite coaches in all of pro football. It was an amazing opportunity to go to Canada and really see how Canada's system works. I'll tell you what, I definitely like the American system. But when you think about, the exposure, the game time, and really competing at that level, they got a wider field and a longer field and an extra player on the field. So when you think about it, it's a lot more different rules. But, in that itself, taught me a lot. And, being able to compete on that level was definitely another opportunity. But when I came back to the States and with the Pittsburgh, I felt that that was the turning point for me, where things actually got really, really, I'd say, it's emotional, and that's really where my life changed with football. I got hurt pretty bad. And it was definitely something that made me realize that when you go through those different situations and you face an injury, there's no turning back. And getting hurt and playing hurt is one thing, but when you get injured, that's a whole different thing. And I dehydrated pretty severely in Pittsburgh. And when I realized that I had no idea what was going on, and in the midst of practice, I collapsed because of dehydration. That really put me out. And all I can remember is being picked up off the field, placed into an ambulance, and rushed over to the UPMC hospital. And when I got there, the doctors diagnosed me and said it doesn't look good. And obviously, when you think about what they told me, it was pretty detrimental to where if I didn't make a decision because of me dehydrating so severely, it caused me to have to go into surgery. And going into surgery really put me in a position to where my heart stopped and I died. And it's still a tingle in my spine to have to relive that testimony, to know that I got a second chance at life. And when I was revived and I opened up my eyes the next morning, the doctor said, Kris, you are God's sent child. You are a blessing, and it wasn't your time yet. My heart stopped literally flatline. They had to revive me with the 2 square pegs and shock me back. And thankfully, I was in shape to absorb that electricity because that was really what revived me back because it wasn't my time yet. God said there was another, destiny ahead. The next morning when I woke up, and the first thing that I did was I opened my eyes and I saw my family. And seeing my family made me realize that life is precious. And it wasn't about football at that moment. And I can care less about the game at that point. I was just so happy to see them that I realized that my true values is family. And that's really what meant more to me than anything. Listen, I got no regrets. 1 year in high school, I went to a Division II school. 5 years in, I got a master's degree, but then I made it pro. And I can say I played at the highest level. But when that tragedy happened to me, and I was able to get revived, and see what's most important to me, that truly made me realize that I had to hang up the cleats. I spent 3 months in that hospital. I went in at 350 pounds, and after 3 months of agony, I got rolled out in a wheelchair at 280 pounds. I lost a lot of mass. I went in at football player mammoth, and I got rolled out like basketball player. But I couldn't quit. Collin, and I share my story today that I'll never quit because I have been through life after, and being able to now be able to do what I do now and know that I got a second chance at life made me even more humble. And I thank every morning my blessing.
It's nearly impossible to not wake up and think about anything but your family, especially when something like that happens. And Kris, I don't know if this is something you could even answer, but that moment, and some people who have had similar instances where they've flatlined and they've been pronounced dead have been able to speak back to that moment. Maybe it was an out-of-body experience or something like that. Was there any sort of experience that you can recall from that moment?
It felt like a trance. And all I can remember was being on that hospital bed, and the many physicians that surrounded me said, "You're going to be okay." But before we went in and I was put under, they say you're a fighter. And from what I do remember was it just felt like a dark trance of blur. And I blacked out. And when I still continue to think about that moment, you just lose it all. And you don't know what's going to happen or if you're even going to have an opportunity to share a story. But it's definitely a tunnel, and it definitely was an experience in itself. And I'm so thankful that it wasn't my time yet. And that's all I really remember about that situation. And I just feel as if by me going through that phase really has allowed me to understand how important the good people around you are to keep you going. Because those are dark times. Those are times that are not as colorful and it's not as exciting to be able to kind of relive. And it's the goosebumps you get when you're kind of reliving that moment. The tingle in your spine when you're really 12 years ahead now, thinking about that, your heart stopped and you were dead. And every day I wake up every morning and I'm so thankful to say that my heart's pumping again. There's plenty of blood flow going through my body and I feel amazing. But I did get that life after feeling to know that I did go over to the other side. And I guess God had a bigger plan. He had another plan.
The thing that I love, Kris, is how at one point before you're working your butt off to get your opportunity in the NFL, we're thinking about, where am I going to go get dinner tonight? Where am I going to take this girl out on a date? And don't get me wrong, these are all important parts of life. Then you literally are pronounced dead. You get revived, and then you wake up, and it just becomes this singular notion of family.
Family to me is so important. I don't know what I would do without my family. They're my backbone. And that's my driver. That's why I wake up still disciplined, consistent to know that if it wasn't for my family, there would be no point. And I realized how important these people are and the roles that they play in my life. Without my family, things probably would have been worse. But when I think about the support system, when I think about what they have given up for me, it just fuels my energy to know that there are other people who do love you and do care for you. And when you have these types of people in your world, they become your best friends. They become your support system. They become mentees and mentors. And really, when you think about surrounding yourself with good people, who you have at the end of the day, you come in alone, you're going alone. But while you're here in the interim, you have the support system of family. And those small conversations could grow into large conversations and be the best memories that you could ever have. And I value my family so much is the reason why I push myself to give back to my family, give back to society, and just be philanthropic because certain people touch your soul and touch your lives in ways that is unimaginable. And when you have these types of people who support you and love you no matter what, they can love me on my worst day, they can love me on my best day, but they'll never stop loving me. And that's what gives me strength. So my values are around and focused on the people who have always been there for me no matter what. And how I pay it forward is I make sure that I continue to stay disciplined and I continue to do the right thing in the community as a professional. And I live my life with integrity and make sure that those are the steps in leadership that I want to give back. And who knows, one day I'll find the right woman and I'll get married and have a great family and be able to pay it forward. But for today, my immediate family who has provided me with that platform, I have so much gratitude and I'm grateful.
And you're definitely giving back now, obviously, to your family, and of course, as a financial planner, and you're huge with philanthropy as well. Kris, after that experience that forever changed you, how did you decide on becoming a financial planner?
When I looked at finance, I knew it was going to be something to keep my mind intrigued. And, playing left tackle, blind side, and having a real powerful punch, you're living on an island and you're on the edge every play. So when you think about the transition from that position, I got to know the field. I got to protect my quarterback because if I don't, the game's over. So that's the same emphasis that I put in my profession. But the way I apply that is by giving my best game. And the only way I can give my best game is to continue exercising my brain. And I felt that the best career path for me that matched not only my energy, but matched the way that I wanted to give back in this world was to get into finance. So when I realized the sophistication in financial planning and what it takes to have that type of discipline, it was no different than football. The only difference is I wear a three-piece suit and I don't have any shoulder pads and a helmet on. I got to bang every other play.
Well, you could be the first financial planner, Kris, to actually wear all of his football gear with the jersey and the helmet during meetings. You could be that guy. Although that would be kind of difficult. It would get it would get a little sweaty if you wore the helmet too.
Collin, I want to be able to walk through the doorway. But I really love this career path because I do feel that it definitely it's exciting enough to give you the right type of challenge. And really when you grow up in the culture and you see the type of things that I've seen, it's always been a challenge from day one. And having adversity when you go through, different phases of your life from, grade school to junior high to high school to college and now as a professional, I've always had, a harder pathway. And I felt that because I have been able to overcome, I was not going to stop life after the game and, decide to do something that was easy. I owed it to myself to stay competitive. And the best way I knew how was to become a businessman. And, my inspiration is to run my own company one day, maybe start a hedge fund, who knows? But today, I do feel that finance is my calling. And I do feel that, what I have put in regards to study, execution, delivery, and just sharing, my expertise with clients has really allowed me to give back financially, but also teach. I believe that you do things that you love and it's not work. And with finance and being able to help people get themselves organized, whether that's helping them on their personal affairs, whether it's helping business owners with succession planning to know how they're going to exit and sell their company and retire, or whether it's helping a charity, grow a legacy and attract new donors. That is a level of sophistication that I've taken on with such a high calling that I love it. And it's a passion for me to be able to give back in this capacity, but do it strategically and utilize, financial instruments and, apply financial concepts to help people really make a difference. So, finance is, I enjoy it. And it's something that I'm going to continue doing, for a very, very long time.
The thing that I love what you said, Kris, and it's the most minute detail you said, this is what I'm doing today. And I bring that up because it goes back to that mentality of I'm not thinking about the future. I'm not thinking about the past. I'm thinking about what am I doing today, which to me it's practicing the art of mindfulness. And I think that's a beautiful thing because we're always thinking ahead or we're always thinking behind. We're never thinking in the present moment.
Yeah, it's definitely something where I value being able to live for today. Getting a second chance at life, you realize that you want to take one day at a time because nothing's promised tomorrow. And I feel if I can give my best me version of myself while I'm in the moment, we all got the same 24 hours at the end of the day. How are you applying your energy, your time, and your focus? And if people in the world can focus on what's in front of them, there'll be a lot more progress. And I do feel that having that mentality really produces growth by being present. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You can't change what happened already in the past, but you can make a difference now. And I do feel that by you living in the moment, it really helps not only yourself, but it helps people around you. And it helps people really get more grounded and really understand that they're more valuable in today's time than not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. Nothing's promised.
The crazy thing about life is we go through life and we have these moments in time, some of them bigger than others, that forever change you. People always ask me, was there ever a point in time where your life completely changed from 1 minute at 5 o'clock you're one person, at 5:02 after getting some news you're another person? I said yes. The moment when I was 18 and my dad told me he had Lou Gehrig's disease, I kid you not, Kris, before that moment in time, that 5 minute conversation, I was this 18-year-old at Arizona State having a lot of fun, and I was only focused on where am I going out tonight? Am I going to meet a beautiful woman tonight? And it was pretty simple. After that moment, my whole life changed forever. I would never be able to look at a picture of myself before that time the same.
True values, you realize, really what's important when you face something that you can't control. And, when you think about somebody you really love, your parents, your siblings, people who have touched your life, your whole life, but then you realize, well, there is a shortfall along the journey and something that's not controllable. It really wakes you up to really understand that when you have these types of adversities and challenges, how do you respond? You make more time to spend with that person. You make sure that you're involved in that person's life. And really at the end of the day, what's really the impact that you're leaving? Did you make the memory to really share a good moment? Did you have a laugh? Did you share a meal? Were you able to really talk about a topic? And I do believe that that's really when I'm able to say, well, I changed from being Batman to Kris Doura. You know?
I
you
like
know?
that. No, and that's the thing, right? Everything changes. But on the flip side of that, some people don't change. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that go through certain situations and they don't change and they continue living their lives as they were prior to whatever the incident was. And I think that's sad and a very narrow way of thinking.
Well, people at times choose not to change. And at times, I do believe that some people like to still continue to be in situations where they can get more of the attention. If they're going through a situation and they choose not to change and they like the predicament they're in, it's by choice. And I do feel that everybody has the choice to decide if they want to change for themselves. Nobody can change you. You can only change yourself. And by you wanting to change, I do feel that people are more encouraged to get help. Mental health is a huge part of what's now being exposed. Mental health has been around since Earth has started. So when you think about, well, how do people really seek help, seek guidance? Find somebody to talk to. You don't always have to pay for a therapist. You can have a coffee date with a best friend and just share your feelings. And I think that's really what's important is that people, when they're able to connect and find that connection, that is healing in itself. So it allows you to change. It produces good thought process. It really motivates you to want to do better. And I think it's self-reflection. And looking at the mirror every morning and blaming others is not change. It's not empathy.
For you, Kris, was there ever a doubt in your mind that was there ever a moment where you're like, I don't want to change, or was it as soon as you woke up, you thought about your family and you never thought about anything else? Because, like you said, us as human beings, we do have the choice.
I had no choice. I had no choice, but to keep my head on a swivel and to be prepared to change. Because I didn't grow up filthy rich, nor did I grow up, with a silver spoon in my mouth, where the options were presented, on a platter. I had to adjust and adapt. And if you're not growing, you're dying. And that's really where, because of my personal upbringing and story and my experiences, I learned that I had to become a chameleon in whatever situation I was in, and I had to make decisions for myself. Because when you are on your own in college and you become an adult in the real world, things get real. So at the end of the day, it's like, well, how do you really, allow yourself to adapt and change to the circumstances around you? You don't become a product of your own environment. You become a product of what your belief system is. And by you having the ability to be able to want better for yourself, that's what empowers you to want to change and do better. And those were the things that I've always had to deal with, growing up. That if I don't go out there and change myself first, how can I change the world? So by me getting an education and by me focusing on a sport, that was my out. That was my opportunity. It's not for everybody. People have other ways of using education, relationships, the community, church, spirituality, whatever it is that really helps you become your better self. I encourage. But when you think about it, everybody has a different story that they write. Nobody is the same ever in this globe. There's 7 billion people in this globe. There's not one person that's alike, even if you are a twin.
If you had to go back in time and chat with a younger version of yourself, what would you tell him?
I would say to my younger self to surround myself with the right mentor and be able to adapt to circumstances, but by having the right support system around you. Because I do feel if I was able to talk to myself at a younger stage in my life, I don't know where or how things would be today, but knowing what I know now and the experiences that I have experienced, and if I had the ability to go back into time, I would say to mentally prepare for the unknown. And the only way to do that is by surrounding yourself with people who can provide you with information and guidance and love at the end of the day. I think that that's really what's more powerful than anything is love and allowing humanity to be able to share that kind of love, whether it's somebody that you respect, that you look up to. And love can be demonstrated in so many different ways through, hanging out, through, grabbing a meal, buying somebody a gift, or simply just having a conversation and giving your time. That's love. And I think that if we are able to produce more love in the humanity that we live in, the world is going to change for the better.
Do you miss football at all, Kris?
You know what? It was a great time in my life. And if I didn't get hurt, if I didn't go through that situation, I still would have been active because I love it. It's competitive. It keeps you on your toes. And when I watch it today as a spectator, it brings back some memories. But because of my accomplishments and what I do for the community and philanthropy today, I love that football was a part of my journey, but it's not the end game of my journey. So football has provided me a great platform and opened a lot of great doors, for me. But if I had to choose to go back, it'd probably go back to that moment where my heart didn't stop. And that's the only thing I probably wouldn't change.
You gave me chills when you went in depth about that moment at Steelers training camp, when you passed out from dehydration. And shoot, it almost felt like I was in that moment with you.
It was a time. It was a time that was. I can't change that moment. But I am grateful. I'm very grateful to be able to share that part of my life and that journey, because I do want the youth to know, to be inspired, and to always know that never be satisfied with that one answer. Never allow somebody to belittle you in any way. Never give up on your dreams because you just never know when opportunity knocks, you got to be ready. And going through that situation in my life really has made me evolve in a different way, but it has made me become more humble. It's made me produce more love. It has allowed me to really appreciate the people who enter my life. And without me going through that life or death situation, I don't know if I would have been the same type of person. And in a way, I'm grateful because I have experienced something that not many people can talk about. And that does put me in a position to where you become a lot more grateful for the people who do enter your life. And you become more appreciative by the acts of kindness and the humility that you can really share with a kid, with an adult, with the senior. And I think, you really understand that living in the moment is so much more important than trying to figure out what's ahead.
It's weird. It's these little things in life that we tend to overlook on a daily basis. I'm guilty of it, overlooking that are so vital and important, that are in some ways more important than that big dinner that you can't wait to get to, but is 10 hours later on in the day. It's the little minute details of your life and your day in passing. Obviously, pre-COVID times, for me at least, at Trader Joe's, I always like making small talk with the cashier, smiling, because you never know how that can impact someone's day. It's those little details, Kris.
Those are the most important things, really, that you can offer somebody is a smile. And, you just being able to, say hello, good morning, good afternoon, thank you, you're welcome. Those things mean so much. That's human capital. And when you have human capital, the world opens up for you. Doesn't matter where you're from, what you've been through, and how you approach, the next day. Today is what counts. And by having human capital, it's by having that gratitude to know, well, how did I impact that person? Doesn't matter what level you are, what tax bracket, you have to report. At the end of the day, we're all people. And I think the only thing that really separates us is human capital. Thank you, please. I appreciate it. Those are the choice of words. When people use those words, they could just be so wonderful. Just to hear those types of words from people that you would never expect, and how that can really impact somebody's lifestyle by just cracking a smile and just being grateful for that human connection.
Again, we tend to think extravagantly. Okay, how do I make this person happy? I'm going to go buy them something extravagant. Where, like, that's great, and if you could do it, no problem, but sometimes it's just as simple as planning a nice walk outside. Maybe going and grabbing a little coffee at the little coffee shop, right, it's just simple. We overcomplicate things. I had Zoltan Mesko, former Patriots punter, was on the podcast, and he told me while he was with the Patriots, everything was simplified. There wasn't some ZX92739 crazy play that was that Bill Belichick created. It was, hey, I need you to hit that guy's left shoulder on this play. Can you do that?
To be a simple kind of man.
Dude, I love that song.
That's what life's about. Simple is the best. Not overcomplicating things, and just living every day as it's your best day.
Kris, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me and share your story from the very beginning in New York, weaving through Miami, living in Haiti, coming back, going to Charleston, getting a shot in the NFL, going to Canada, coming back. I mean, so many wrinkles and layers to your story, and I'm really excited for people to hear it because it puts life in perspective for you. It begs the question, if you have one day left on this earth, how are you going to utilize that day? And I think that's something that rarely anybody thinks about because we feel like our time here is infinite when it's not.
I'm excited to know that I'm able to share my story on your platform and really be a part of something special. Thank you, Collin. I'm very grateful.